Good morning, everyone. We're so excited that you can join us. I'm Jonna Van Dune, president of the Nebraska Tech Collaborative, and we want to thank you for joining us as a guest of this webinar that the internship committee is doing called Expanding the Talent Pipeline through internship programs. So first off, before we get started and we have this great panel put together for you today, let me take a quick second to talk to you a bit about the NTC. So basically, it's pretty easy. The mission of the NTC is to create, develop, and retain and attract tech talent and entrepreneurs to the state of Nebraska. We've realized over the years that we can't do this as individual companies or individuals, but it's going to take everybody from business, from government to education, from nonprofits for us to meet this challenge of not having enough tech talent and entrepreneurs. If we're going to grow and be prosperous as a state, this is the perfect time for us to come together and get this done. We have an incredible network of not only businesses, but again, as I said, nonprofits, government entities, higher education, PK through 12 education, all working towards the same goal. How do we solve our challenges as a community in hiring more tech talent? And so with that, I'm going to introduce to you now the internship committee chair, Ryan Wade.
Thank you, Jonna. Truly appreciate it. And we thought we'd start off with introductions. My name's Ryan Wade. I'm the software solutions manager for Lutz Technology and have been involved with the NTC really since the beginning. I'm involved because I truly believe, as Jonna does, that as a state, we can attract and retain the next generation of tech talent if we're able to partner and collaborate like we do so well in Nebraska. My role today is to help facilitate the discussion, which means I'll do my best to keep us on track. Part of that role means I'll be asking questions, but also we want to hear the questions from you as well. So please use the chat feature to ask questions. We'll do our best to sprinkle those through the discussion today. And then if we do not get to something, it's our means to follow up with you. And so please use that chat feature. We truly appreciate it. Alongside of me, we have an impressive panel that hopes to share their experiences in managing and growing quality IT internship programs. They will do a lot better job of introducing themselves than I could ever do. So, for our panelists, can you please introduce yourselves, your role with your organization, and maybe just a little bit about your program? And Jessica, would you mind kicking us off?
I'm Jessica Schumacher. I am with Nelnet. We have had an internship program for quite a while, but we've been able to focus on it a lot more for the last 6 years or so. So we have, one of the differences about our program from a lot of programs is we are a school year round program. So we don't have necessarily just a summer emphasis, but our emphasis is really retaining talent year round. So last year we hired 144 interns. This year, we're shooting for more than that. So I'm excited to chat with all of you about some of the things that we've learned and how we've developed.
Bob Herrera with Mutual of Omaha. I've been involved with the internship program here at the company for quite a long time. And like Jessica, we really had a renewed focus within the last, I'll say, 7 to 10 years. And our program has increased dramatically. We used to have somewhere between 10 and 15 interns, and I think in 21 we're going to have a total of 75. And so really looking forward to sharing some of the initiatives and ideas that we use here at the company.
Hey everybody, I'm Kevin Forrest. I'm part of the talent acquisition team at Union Pacific Railroad. So I can't tell you in our 158-year history how long we've had interns, but it's definitely a prominent part of our strategy. We have a core set of universities that we recruit from, but we do, talk to students from across the United States, and we operate in 23 states. So it's a pretty wide variety of summer internships, year-round internships, hybrid internships, but they span across a lot of disciplines within IT.
Well, thank you to each of the panelists for your time today and sharing more. I'd also like to thank everybody for joining and investing their time. We truly appreciate it. The reason why we're here today is that growing a quality internship program is critical to building a sustainable IT pipeline. But as with all aspects of our business, especially over this last year, the need to innovate and continuously learn and adapt is critical to our businesses. And so throughout today's discussion, we hope to share some of our best practices and lessons learned around IT internships around 3 topics: virtual internships, diversity, equality, and inclusion, and following up with opportunities to expand your intern talent pool. Each of these topics could be sessions of their own, and we realize that, but I think our goal today is to hit some of the high-level recommendations, but we do plan on providing more content in each of these areas as we move forward. And the best way for us to provide value and guide our activities is to better understand your programs and plans. So following this discussion, we will be sending out a survey. Please, please, please take the time to fill that out. It will help guide our activities and make sure they're as relevant as possible to you. And so with that in mind, and with it in that spirit, to kick us off, we'd like to learn a little bit more about your programs during this discussion. So Mara, would you mind kicking off the first? There we go. So we're going to be using these polling questions throughout the discussion today. And if you could just take a second to fill out this question for us. What is your 2021 internship program going to look like? Is it in person, virtual, hybrid, or do you not plan on having a program for this upcoming year? So the first results are in, about 20% in person, almost 40% virtual, 20% a hybrid model, and then 25% none. Thank you so much for filling that out. I think we can use that as a guide for this discussion. And introducing the first topic, as we've all had to adapt, especially during this last year, virtual internships is a new tool, I would say, in the belt for all of us who have these internship programs. And so what we'd like to do is start us off, and Jessica, can I ask for your help? Can you share a little bit about Nelnet's approach in virtual internships over the last year and what your experience was?
Absolutely. So obviously the timing of the pandemic was terrible no matter what, but because it did happen a little bit before the internship program was to start, we did have a little bit of time to react. So at Nelnet, instead of minimizing or reducing the number of headcount or canceling our program, we saw it as an opportunity to expand our pool and be able to give students whose opportunities were taken away the chance that they weren't going to get that summer. So the way it benefited us is we were actually able to bring on 24 additional interns to what we were going to bring on, and that helped us tremendously. We are actually, I think there's 10 or 12 of those interns who we are going to be bringing on full time once they graduate this May. So it did really give us an opportunity to pivot. It was a challenge. We were learning as we went, but it allowed us to bring on obviously more interns than we were going to bring on in the first place. And then because of that remote and virtual aspect, we were able to hire people that weren't from the locations where our home offices were. So since they weren't going brick and mortar, we allowed them, to be in Connecticut, in Texas, in Florida, in California, and they were never going to miss anything because nobody was in the office. So it definitely set the stage to have a level playing field for all candidates, for all of our interns, and there was that feeling of solidarity because everyone was experiencing the same thing at the same time. And it actually went very well. We, like I said, learned a lot of things and had to pivot quite frequently, but overall, the ability to grow it like that, we would not have seen if it wasn't for something like this.
Thank you for that, Jessica. Bob, how about you in Mutual of Omaha? Can you share a little bit about how you approach virtual internships?
Absolutely. Very similar to what happened with Nelnet. Once we got the decision, because there was a lot of discussions with everything switching to remote, I think some people were a little nervous about the experience. And fortunately, we said, we got this. We're in IT, we'll figure it out. We'll just, we'll roll with the punches. And then very similar to what happened at Nelnet, we were given the okay to hire some additional students. And in fact, one in particular who had an internship, but it got pulled at the last minute. He reached out to us and we were able to bring him on. So again, it worked out well in that regards. And then our management group allowed us to add even a few additional interns into the pool. And like Jessica said, we didn't really care where they were working from. They could have been anywhere across the US. That took that whole logistic piece off of the table. And so that was one thing that was a plus for us. And in talking about housing, we typically provide housing to our interns over the summer. Well, that fell through. We didn't need to worry about that. And so we actually benefited from some cost savings that we're able to apply towards the additional interns that we brought on. So that was another plus for us. But again, very, very similar to what happened with Nelnet.
So Bob, it sounds like a combination of the not needing to coordinate as many, the logistical aspect, and then the additional budget, if you will, allowed you to expand your program. Is that right?
I don't think senior management was really worried about the budget at that point in time. They were more interested in, if we can help bring some more folks on and give them a meaningful experience, let's do it. And I'm just so impressed with the support that we've received. And I think, any of us on the panel, we're very fortunate that our companies provide us with that level of support.
And I've had the opportunity to work with each of you, and that top-down support is so critical through all of this. So, glad to hear that echoed through your answers, Bob. Kevin, do you mind talking a little bit about UP and the virtual internship and how you guys approached that this last year?
Yeah, you bet, Ryan. Our internships typically are in person, whether they're at our headquarters in Omaha or out in the field, across our 23 states. So a lot of our internships, we obviously err on the side of caution. We're an essential business, so we never shut down operationally. But from an internship perspective, we did cancel most of our internships for last summer. And I guess what the company did to show good faith to those students that had a willingness where they had accepted an internship with us, or they had accepted and already gone through all of the post-offer, clearance process, we went ahead and compensated them for the summer as if they completed their internships. And then we gave those students the first right in our year-round or summer internships starting in this year. So, we had to, just like everybody else, had to be agile with how we navigated through the pandemic. And, that really helped us in our relationships with the universities, because I would say that the general consensus from students in the universities was very positive about how the company decided to navigate, through that. So very similar things as Bob and Jessica, as far as the housing we typically provide, pay for expenses for students that travel away from where they live or their university to do an internship. So we obviously were able to save from an expense standpoint, but kind of set our eyes how to navigate a little bit better this year and going forward too.
Well, thank you, Kevin. And as you can hear, just, similar themes in terms of their answers, but also different approaches. And we understand that from a business perspective, it's very situational. And so that's why we put the panel together the way that we did, is just to approach it in just a little different tact for each. Bob, as we put together some thoughts around this area, there's some recommendations. Is there anything you wanted to key in on in terms of the recommendations for managing a quality virtual internship program?
Yeah, I'd like to mention a couple of things, and then Jessica and Kevin just chime in, because we all had to handle it, what made sense for our companies. I know with the onboarding, one thing that we did is we went to a virtual desktop image, because we just didn't want to deal with the hardware and shipping it all over the country. And so I think we're going to talk about that in a little bit more detail going forward. But again, you have options. You can do physical hardware, or you can do virtual desktop images. But then I think the other thing that was key is we had to really communicate and then communicate and then communicate, because the students are nervous. And once they didn't hear from us, they got really nervous. And so that's something that I can't emphasize enough, even, on a normal year, whatever normal looks like now. You just want to make sure that you over communicate, because students, they do tend to question if they don't hear back from the company.
I think one of the important things for us to do very early was setting our expectations and kind of giving them an idea of what our company norms are, since they would never, we knew last summer they would never step foot in the office. So we, you know, early on, some of the expectations that we set were, you know, this is what we do. This is how we set up meetings. This is, you know, the normal communication methods we use. Also, like specifically for my team, I was like, here's an expectation from me. Just because I'm emailing you at 9 p.m. does not mean that I expect a response. And I think it's very important to set those standards and have those conversations early, because they're just getting to know you as managers. You're just getting to know them as interns, and you don't want them to, you know, be under the impression that when you're working, they have to be working. So I know that that was one thing that we talked about early on, and that helped. But also, I think it was a challenge, but also just an opportunity to get to know the interns on deeper levels, but really talking through our company culture, our values, our norms, saying, you know, this, if we were in the office, this is how things would be handled. You would be seeing this, you would be feeling this. So being able to verbalize that to them, but then also being able to show them that we did have to get creative with that. So, you know, when we have, let's say a core value, one of our core values, open, honest communication. So we said, if you were in the office, you could go knock on anyone's door, you could go anywhere and talk to anyone, because that's, you know, we operate more in a flat manner where, you know, nobody's above anybody. Everybody can ask questions. Everybody can talk to other people without, you know, feeling like they're not worthy of doing so. So instead, since that wasn't happening naturally, we had to plan events where, you know, we created that for them. So we would have events where we'd invite our executives for just Q&A sessions, like, you know, tell us how you're feeling, what your questions are. We just give them other chances to feel that open, honest communication core value, since it wasn't something that they could see, and it couldn't be such a tangible thing in person. So we really had to bring, you know, think outside the box a little bit, plan fun things, and try to show them and make them feel our core values, even though they were never going to be around each other.
Thank you, Jessica.
With her, that's so true. I think the other thing that we really had to be mindful of is we were always flexible with students, especially when they had classes that they were taking over the summer. But I think with the virtual, we had to almost force them to leave your desk. You know, don't feel like you have to be in front of your computer for 8 hours straight. It's like, just like if you're, you know, need a coffee break, or you need to go and walk and talk to another intern, or to come and find one of the intern coordinators to talk about an issue or a question, just do it virtually, do it through, you know, a chat, do it through an email, pick up the phone, call us. And so I think having a flexibility in your program is really, really key.
And I think what's interesting, and I'm hearing, is, you know, setting expectations and over communicating. There's also the challenge, right? It's hard to set expectations when things are unwritten, or you don't even think about it. And so we're hoping, you know, through our committee to share some of those, so that you know, we paid some tuition in working these things through over the last year, and hoping to share more information about those lessons learned. But like Jessica said, you know, you have to, you know, set the expectations of what the work hours are, and, you know, like Bob said, when to be in front of your computer. Mara, would you mind going to the next slide? You know, for the group, you know, we're sharing best practices, and then also some lessons learned, kind of to that point. And, you know, Bob, you had mentioned a little bit about hardware. Did you want to expand upon that?
I did, just real quickly. So we did VDIs last year. We've made the switch for anyone that we hired at the end of 2020 and going into 2021, that we're sending hardware out to everyone. And the reason for that is we ran into some issues with their age of their equipment and some of the operating systems that they were running. And it just made it easier if we sent them all equipment, then we knew what we were sending them, and we could troubleshoot a little bit more easily. So that would be one thing I would throw out to the group, is to think about, even though there's a little bit more of an expense, I think it's worth it. At least it has shown so far to be worth it with our approach.
We did give all of our interns company issued hardware from the beginning. Within a week of the pandemic, we had our entire workforce 6,000 of the 6,600 associates at home set up with their equipment. So we thought, why wouldn't we do that with the interns also? I will say that we are iterating that this year also. We've found, at the beginning, as you're scrambling to make it work, we sent them their equipment and said like, hey, give us a call when you're doing this and we'll try to walk you through it. This year, we're equipping the interns with, and all associates with, a video that actually shows someone setting things up so they can maybe troubleshoot on their own and they can figure those things out. We definitely have learned over the last year what the normal problems are that people run into, what the questions are, where they're finding things, or maybe the areas that they were missing things. So I think that this year, one of the benefits that we have is just being able to equip them with that knowledge and those different tools ahead of time rather than being reactive. So this year we feel much more proactive and prepared as opposed to where we were last year. But we are also issuing all of our hardware to the interns because it has just proven to help us a lot.
Good. One thing I was going to also mention about the managing their experiences on an individual by individual basis. I think all of us were thinking, oh, they're young. They've already been having to do this remote for school. They're used to this. And that's not the case. It really hits people differently. It hits some of the full-time associates differently. And so from my standpoint, I really would encourage you to get to know where everyone is at along the spectrum, because some may be having no problems, no issues whatsoever, and others may be really struggling. And so that is something that we've really picked up on, and we're actually starting to send some articles and information out, encouraging the interns to reach out if they feel like they need to talk to someone. And I think they're very appreciative of it because they're a little, I think, embarrassed at times to ask. And, I would say that of myself, but we told them, don't be embarrassed. We want to make sure that you're in a good place.
Thank you for that, Bob. And I do think before we go to the next topic, it's important to hit on this point of company culture, because, we're using these internship programs, obviously, to build our IT talent pipeline. And so we're hoping to convert those interns into full-time positions. And so in order to do that, they have to be exposed to the company culture to be competitive over that talent. So, would anybody like to mention a little bit about how you've approached that? Because it's challenging for full-time employees, let alone interns who we haven't had that experience with.
Yeah, I can jump in on that one and just echo a lot of the same things as Bob and Jessica. Like we had, you can't, take students' resiliency for granted, right? I mean, it's hard to get them immersed in the culture that they would normally have when they're in your building or, amongst other interns and other staff. So, I mean, we need to go out of our way to make sure that, we don't need to rely on them just to yell when they're uncomfortable, or when they have an issue. We've got to be very proactive and, making sure that they, we need to set the example and show them in our interactions and behavior, the type of company, that we are and how we represent ourselves. So just, navigating that with the students obviously is, with interns is a little bit more complex or difficult than it has been. But in our experience, just being proactive and tying it into a point on the last slide, that's something that UP, I think, does very well, especially since some of our interns, if they're out in the field, they may be the only intern there. So we always try to find ways to give them the opportunity to network with other interns, and that's been even more so important this year, or with the virtual internships, because they're not getting that normal exposure to, in person as they typically would.
So much more to share, and it's my unfortunate job here to keep us moving with the topics, but please use the chat with any individual questions. We saw one come through, which we appreciate. We'll plan on covering that during the Q&A session towards the end of the presentation. But if there are, those questions about how these companies have approached virtual internships, please use the chat feature. And with that, I think we're at a good transition point to our next topic. One of the key challenges we face as an overall IT industry is how to attract and retain a diverse talent pool, one that is inclusive and engaging. And one of the areas we definitely wanted to touch on, a very complex and a challenge that we all, I believe we all face. But then again, we wanted to, learn a little bit more. Is this a challenge that you're seeing in your organization? So we're curious, are you currently struggling to increase the number of diverse candidates in your program? We kept it pretty simple, yes or no. And I know there's a lot of complexity to this, but just do your best to take a shot at answering that question. And the survey's in, and about 70% of us believe that it is a challenge, and 30% no. I did warn the group, and I didn't tell you this ahead of time, but those who are not struggling, we'd love to tap in if you feel that you have some lessons learned of your own. So thank you for answering that. Bob, I know that this is an area of passion for you and for Mutual. Can you share a little bit about how Mutual Omaha is attacking, the opportunity to introduce more diversity and inclusion in the workspace?
Absolutely. So I have to give a shout out to the great university and college partners that we have. We have been very fortunate to have a strong tie with a lot of the universities and colleges. And as a result, they will guide us towards, these are the groups, these are the individuals that you want to talk with, these are the presentations that you want to provide to the students and the different classes. And so I really feel like to tap into the local market, you want to leverage those relationships. And if you don't have a strong relationship, you need to get one. I just can't emphasize that enough. I feel very fortunate that it's a partnership. It's not a one-way, it's a partnership. And so we work to help each other with the end goal of providing as many opportunities to our students as we can. And so that's what I would say from the local standpoint, get to know the universities in your backyard and in the region, because you're going to have an easier time of attracting someone if they're from the area. When we run into difficulties, it's when they're outside of the Midwest. But now with it being virtual, that opens up the national candidate pool. And again, Jessica and Kevin, feel free to jump in here, but we've just seen it explode because of that change.
I think that one of the biggest positives that came out of all of this is we kind of shot for the stars last fall when it came to our recruitment process. There were schools that we were interested in that we just didn't go to before, or that we found that they were interested in us, but we didn't spend a lot of time in them because of physical location. But now it doesn't matter. So one of the things that we really focused on last year was attending a number of HBCUs. So we went to 8 different HBCUs last year, and seeing the relationships being built there with both our university partners and the students, seeing those candidates come in and the applications come in has been really great, because that being able to tap into all of these different markets is only going to help the organization. The innovation that comes, the things that are important to different people geographically, we've already seen it just in the last year. So we really focused on those areas, and just along the same vein of HBCUs, just to talk a little bit about InternX. That has been a program that we have been working with for about 6 months now. If anybody doesn't know what InternX is, it's a platform that was created as a sourcing tool and connection platform for underrepresented minority students. So right now there's over 12,000 students who are involved with InternX. I think the biggest benefit to employers is that they're pre-vetted. So, they've had to go through a process. They have to meet a minimum requirement for GPA. They go through an interview process to be part of InternX. So when you're running campaigns through them, or you are holding events with them, that you're meeting a group of students who have already gotten a thumbs up from a panel. And so we actually, we're currently running a campaign for one of our internship programs. And then we have our first Intern X students who have made it to the final rounds of their interviews that will be interviewing next week. So it's just been cool to see, you know, these things are working, and where the engagement, as we track our social media following, it's been popping up in new different areas of the US. People are understanding who and what we are now because of our ability to be able to reach these different areas. So the pandemic has definitely provided us great opportunities in that area.
You know, just kind of starting off with, you know, what would be the first steps? You know, we have 70% of those who are, you know, in attendance here that believe it is a struggle and it is a challenge. What would you say the first steps are for organizations wanting to tackle the issue and take, you know, part of the opportunity to have a more diverse workspace in IT?
Let me jump in and then you guys feel free to expand. I've always felt working local and then going out nationally was always our approach. We always leveraged, and I'll pick on, you know, UNO, UNL, and Metro as some folks that we were able to get a lot of diversity from without having to go nationally. And then we started seeing some success at Creighton. And so it's just, it's so encouraging to see where, you know, there's talent right here. It's just that a lot of companies are looking at the same talent pool. So it gets to be very competitive. So don't get discouraged, because I think once you bring in an individual and they have a good experience, they're going to tell their peers, and it's just going to snowball. So we've seen that work out very well. The other thing that I need to give a shout out to is Deepak at UNO has really pushed the focus on international students. And I'm just very thankful for that, because as a result of our focus there, that referral is expanded well beyond UNO. We get a lot of referrals within, you know, the local schools. But once we bring in a student from Southern Florida or from school out in California or in Texas or wherever the location is, they start to talk to their peers, and then we start to see additional international students applying. And it's just encouraging to see that, you know, they're a very tight-knit group, even though they're very, you know, dispersed and come from all different countries. But that's where that, you know, variety and innovation that Jessica had mentioned earlier, I think it's just so key. But I personally would start local and then expand from there.
And our efforts are similar to Bob's in that we have a traditional list of core universities that we recruit historically, a lot of our interns, and then convert them to full-time hires. But as far as national candidates, I mean, we've definitely cast a much wider net, even beyond those core schools that we've historically been involved with. And that has helped us, you know, a lot, you know, as far as reaching more diverse candidates. So, I mean, that's something that, you know, we've had a recipe that works. I mean, we really haven't had trouble finding people. And like Bob said, you know, locally, you know, most of us, all of us have pretty strong brand recognition. But when you go, you know, outside and you go to the, you know, like with UP, we stop operating along the Mississippi River, basically. So when you get to universities on the, you know, on the East Coast up and down, you know, people are more familiar with other railroads, even though we're the largest in North America. So, I mean, there's a little bit of extra work, but, you know, it definitely pays off with what you get, you know, as far as expanding that diversity and, you know, being willing to go out of your, you know, your normal processes to reach those candidates.
One other thing I was going to mention real quick too, Jessica had mentioned Intern X. We were made aware of a program called Code Path, which is very similar, heavy minority student representation. And in fact, we have our first student from a historically Black college and university, or HBCU. We have our first intern that started with us, I think, back in December. And I just hope that again snowballs into another pipeline for us. And when we had the representative from Code Path meet with us, she had mentioned we were the only company in the state of Nebraska that was working with them. So I would love to see more companies, if you have an interest, to reach out. We've had some very good success, and the candidates are vetted. They send them through specific programming courses in addition to their 4-year degrees. And so it's just been a very good relationship for us.
You know, as an overall industry, there's so much to be done here and unpack. You know, this is an area of discussion for our group that, you know, wow, when it's the right thing to do ethically, and then also the right thing to do for your business, how, you know, how ripe for opportunity there is here. And you can hear that, you know, these organizations see it strategically as, again, the right thing to do, but then also open up a talent pool that hasn't really been cultivated yet. And so, you know, please, again, you know, use the chat feature to ask any questions or reach out to us. We'd love to share more about what's working and what challenges we face in terms of tapping into this opportunity. So you know, again, the bad part of my job is to move us on, but, you know, last but not least, we're on to our final topic of this program, which involves the idea of how to further expand your IT internship program. And Mara, would you mind putting the next polling question up, please? This last polling question will help us better understand the types of roles that you're currently offering in your program, and what unique type of internships does your company offer today? I believe, Bob, when we had talked about this, we said there's the traditional kind of developer IT role, but we're interested in what other types of roles that are being offered. And the survey says, interesting. So, you know, 0% for both the Scrum Master and data scientist. You know, there's also, you know, another almost 30% that said none of these roles. Quality assurance seems to be an area of interest, and a little bit on the business analyst. Interested to learn more about the other. So if you did answer other, it would be helpful to put information in the chat just so we have that. What other types of roles did we miss here? But, you know, moving along, Kevin, would you mind kicking us off in this area? Can you tell us a little bit more about the types of roles in your programs?
Yeah, you bet. I mean, the majority of our IT internships are based out of our headquarters in Omaha, but we're, you know, prevalent in those 23 states that we operate in. So for us to be involved with, you know, high schools, you know, we don't do internships with high school students, but we're heavily involved in Skills USA and other collaborative efforts, just so they're aware of the opportunities that we have and the importance of going into STEM or the IT field. So, I mean, we definitely work, especially across our network. Like North Platte's a great example here, you know, still in the state, which is definitely, I mean, it depends on who you ask, it's central or western Nebraska, but, you know, it's very important for us to be in tune with those high schools and community colleges and technical schools, because especially in those rural communities, we need to be, you know, beating on their door, making sure they know what kind of opportunities we have, whether it's an internship or once they get done with school, no matter what path they choose to take after high school, like we have an avenue to get to us and the type of benefits and career opportunities, you know, that we have to offer them. So, I mean, that's something we're heavily involved with, especially in those rural communities that are kind of quintessential railroad towns where, you know, people are aware of the work because their mom or their dad or grandma or grandpa, you know, have worked for us. So just making sure we're staying vigilant with them to make sure they know what kind of opportunities we have to offer them locally and across the country.
What we have done within our program is create multiple different subsets of interns. So this is expanding a little bit past just IT, but we do have a normal IT program. We have a legal fellowship. We have traditional interns, so that's interns who are in one department in a certain area. We have our pathway program, which is our rotational internship program that goes through the course of an entire school year. And I would like to also kind of address a question that Deepak had put into the chat at the same time. Part of our program is being able to grow into different areas, or whether it's full-time opportunities or different internships within the organization. So we have an emerging leaders program that leads into what we call our executive research internship. So it's a chance for those really high potential interns who we know we want to stay and we want to retain post-graduation. It's a chance for them to be selected into this program where they work directly with our executives and our highest leadership within our organization to learn through research and through presentation on initiatives that are meaningful and important to the organization. So we provide them with their growth opportunities, and we really try to provide those opportunities to be mentored and to learn and grow through breakout areas of our program, so that people are not only being introduced to the organization, but they're really finding their niche, and they're finding where they see themselves potentially having a long-term home. So we just, once we get them, we try to just continue to grow them from within, so they feel so invested in and so appreciated that they don't want to leave at the end of their internship.
So I want to add
Thanks, Jessica.
a little bit with what our approach has been. So we were heavy on application development. We started moving into cybersecurity and information assurance. And then we started to get into data, not only like a data working with SQL or working with Informatica, but then we started bringing folks in for data science. And we really found some really strong candidates at Creighton and some of the other schools. And it's just exploded. We've had some really good luck getting some DBA candidates from Metro Community College, which has been just amazing because it's so hard to find a young person that wants to go into a DBA role because they may not know what that is. And so we've had just some really great experiences. The business analyst role has started to take off, and that can potentially lead into a project management role down the path, a little bit further. And it's all around growth, just like what Jessica and Kevin mentioned. We do not want to bring them in and have them have a bad experience because they're not going to want to stay. And so we have a rotational program. We have a year-round program. We let students move around. We let them pick if they want to stay, if they want to go into a new rotation. And then when it comes time to offer, that's the end game. We're trying to convert as many of the students as possible. And we know if they have a good experience as an intern and they feel like they're being treated as an employee while they're an intern, we're going to have a much higher success rate of converting. And that's what's happened, fortunately. So
Now I was going to add, on these bullet points that we on our software team opened up a high school internship for the first time over this last year, and it was specifically focused on quality assurance. And our experience was that it was such a natural place to start for someone who had interest in development but no experience, because the amount of tools that are out there to kind of introduce them and self-teach, and then we could mentor, it was a natural fit, and we were able to do it pretty young. And now that intern has been with us over the last 9 months, and now is into automated testing. And we see the potential to grow that role over time. And now they have that engineering mindset. So just a couple things that we've experienced as well.
Right. I wanted to share a couple of things on the non-traditional and the high school as well. So with the non-traditional, I would encourage companies to look at your two-year degree programs, your code schools, your military programs that are out there. We've had some really good success, and I again need to recognize the relationship that we've built over the years with Metro. We didn't used to recruit anything but a 4-year degree, and now we've switched that, and we have had such a high number of candidates that we've not only recruited but have stayed on as full-time employees, and it's been just a great thing to see. They're getting married, they're buying homes, and you just see a huge difference. And so I can't emphasize that enough. If you don't work with your local community colleges, I would encourage you to do so, in addition to your target schools and universities. And then we also jumped into the high school internship program, work pretty closely with Intern Omaha right now. And last year, we brought in our first 2 interns. One of them stayed on with us, rolled right into our college internship program. And so it's working just like we're hoping, is we're trying to make that be a feeder And so we're going from 2 high school interns to 6, hopefully for the upcoming summer and 21-22 school year. So again, I wouldn't discourage you from taking a look at either one of those approaches.
Jessica or Kevin, anything else to add before we move on to the questions and answers section?
I think the only thing I wanted to add, Bob had done a shout out for the program in Omaha that helps cultivate those high school intern relationships. First Job Lincoln is what we have in Lincoln to as one of the means of creating those relationships, creating those connections. You can be part of First Job Lincoln if you just want to do resumes reviews, or if you want to do practice interviews, or if you want to go through the process of hiring them. Again, they do a great job of taking on some of the mentorship aspect and making sure that students are ready to come work in your organizations, and you know, they assist with that professional development side. So for anybody who's on the call in Lincoln who would be interested in that, First Job Lincoln is one of the great groups that you can work with to do that.
Awesome.
And the only other item I wanted to add, Ryan, was just with our non-traditional candidates, typically our engineering students are working with our telecom systems or with our signal systems across our system, just to give people an idea of kind of what our non-traditional covers.
Well, with that, you know, we've covered a lot of great information today, and thank you for those who have been posting questions. Again, you know, we wanted to just introduce these different topics. We know we're just scratching the surface, but introducing these, I mean, hopefully we've left you with some things to follow up with us on. And the best way to do that would be please answer the survey. I know, you know, you get a lot of those over time, but that can help inform our strategies and what content we provide. And then again, you know, shifting gears into the Q&A, I just wanted to look at a couple of these that have been posted and, you know, allow the panelists to answer those. The first question that we had was, can you talk about how the pandemic may have affected your recruiting timelines, and what does that look like for your companies traditionally?
I know with us, the heavy focus of our recruiting is in the fall. And so for 2020, we had the bulk of our recruiting already done. But going into this current year, we really tried to stay on schedule. And then as new requests come in, again, it's that flexibility piece. I think given people's situations, or if they have an offer and it gets altered in whatever way, we try to be as adaptable as we can, especially if we still have an opportunity. If we filled all of our opportunities, then we go back to student and indicate, you know, I'm sorry, we don't have an opportunity, but please keep us in mind in the future. And so we just try to have that connection. And I know in some cases, I may refer someone to a Nelnet or a Huddle or a UP. I mean, we're all in about keeping talent here local. And so and please don't tell my boss this, but there are times when I will refer people to other companies because, again, they're a good talent and our hope is to get them placed.
I would agree with that. And I don't think our timeline changed. We had to adapt quickly to what last year was going to be. So I think the hardest part of the recruiting timeline, we do most of our recruiting in the fall like Bob does, but we didn't typically know because schools didn't know what they were going to do until end of July. So we had, you know, a month or 6 weeks to potentially figure out, okay, what all virtual fair systems are we going to use? How do we recruit ambassadors? You know, how do we equip our ambassadors with the tools to go to these fairs for us? So the timeline stayed the same, but there were just so many more logistical things to consider that we hadn't necessarily had to consider in the past. Again, not necessarily a bad thing. We viewed it more as an opportunity than a challenge because it was fun and exciting. And for the most part, it went very well. So spring fairs were much easier this year because we already knew what we had to do. We had accommodated last year and, you know, we pivoted the ways we needed to. So this spring has been pretty seamless because now we're old pros at it. We did it last fall, so we've got it for the spring.
Kevin, has it impacted your timeline? I know obviously it impacted the program last year, but moving forward?
Yeah, moving forward, I mean, obviously we're all hopefully in a much better position to be proactive this time around where there was a lot of uncertainty with our ability to move forward with internships last year, and just kind of getting on the same page as the schools with their students, and the kind of coursework and the things that they're able to do. So I mean, from a timing perspective, we're kind of back in the groove of kind of where we normally are. So we're in a much better position to plan and be a little more flexible with the types of internships we can do with the hybrids and the virtuals.
The next question was specific to what is the Intern X program? What does it address? And then, I'll also throw Code Path in there. Maybe just a couple minute highlight from Jessica and Bob.
Yeah, so InternX kind of, as I spoke to before, it's a pool of underrepresented minority candidates from all across the United States. Again, one of the best parts is they've been pre-vetted, and I should also mention it's free to employers. So there's no fee to sign up for it. There's nothing that you have to do, but and again, we've only been partnering with them for the last 6 months, but where we have found, I'd say the most success is being able to run campaigns specifically through there. The contacts that we have within the organization are very personable. They're willing to talk to anyone. They're very passionate about what they do, and all they want to do is help the students who are involved in the program find, the perfect fit for them. So they have gone out of their way just to make it a very enjoyable experience, make it a fruitful experience. We've had candidates coming through our application process. Like I said, we have final interviews next week with some of them, and it's been a very seamless experience. I feel like at this point, anyone who can offer a low maintenance, beneficial way to meet candidates outside of the normal pools that you pull from, why wouldn't you take advantage of it? And so they've just been awesome to work with, and it's been just all around mutually beneficial too, because it benefits their program. They want to place students, they want to get their students out there and having those experiences. So can't say enough about the program. If anyone would want to talk about that further, I'm very happy to. And actually the director of the program, she has ties back to Omaha, so she's very interested in helping people from the Omaha and the Nebraska community out. So it's been an awesome tool for us.
And with Code Path, it's very, very similar. Heavy concentration of underrepresented and minority candidates. They do courses in mobile development, front-end development. Just really impressed with what they've done. They work with different higher ed institutions to partner with them to help introduce some curriculum, or at least recommendations for a curriculum. And then we didn't know them, they didn't know us. The first call I was on, we had 75 plus students joining on a call to learn about us. When we opened up the posting, we had over 300 candidates apply, and we interviewed a large number. I think, we would have offered more if it wasn't as late as it was in the calendar. But for this upcoming fall, we're going to move them up to be on the same schedule as with the target universities and colleges that we recruit from. And so again, I can't say enough about this program as well. I would definitely be interested to talk with anybody if you have more interest, and that would be from the employer side as well as from the higher ed side.
And we have time for one last question. In the summer pathway internship, how does Nelnet try to have a quick upskill with each intern to make sure they can make the most of their time in that rotation? What part does each team play in onboarding?
Awesome. So our pathway program is actually our year-round program. Last year was the first year that we had pathway interns because of everything that happened. We did let them start at the beginning of the summer, so they essentially got longer time in their first rotation. We had them rotate to their first department then after the summer, and of course they killed it because they'd already been there for 3 months. So what we do is they'll do 4 rotations of 8 weeks each throughout the course of the school year. I will say our IT interns, they only do 2 rotations. So they'll do 1 each semester just because of the ramp up time. It's kind of hard to, teach languages and programs and make sure everyone has the appropriate skills all within an 8-week period. So we give them 2 16-week periods. But there are 3 major things that we do to prepare them for their next rotation. The first would be having them meet with their new mentor ahead of rotating into that department. So they can get their initial questions asked. They can, start building those conversations. They can create rapport because they'll need that over the next 8 weeks in that department. We also give them onboarding packets. So prior to them even meeting with their new mentor, so about 2 weeks before they go in, we give them a packet of information that that department has created. And we are a very acronym heavy organization. So it has all the acronyms that they should know within that department, the different words that they say. There's a lot of things that students don't understand necessarily at that point in time. So, these are common things that are talked about. They do org charts. They do, when we're in the office, they say, the restrooms are located in this area. Some of the packets are funny because they do go into, the best places to get snacks on that floor and things like that. But they have links to websites. They have links to areas, within our internal portal. They have Teams channel information, just anything that they can do to give the intern as essentially homework to prepare them to kind of hit the ground running. And then the last day before they rotate, the interns meet with the incoming intern meets with the intern that's rotating out of that department. And we just have them have one-on-one conversations to, at the end of the day, you want to know what your peers have to say about it. You want to have a candid conversation with someone about what the department's like, what the people you're working with are like, watch out for this person. He has terrible dad jokes and things like that. So we use those 3 tools to help really try to set the stage and make that transition as smooth and comfortable as possible. And then as far as the onboarding process goes, when they start at the beginning of the pathway program, my team does an entire onboarding session for them. So it's an 8-hour session where they're learning all about the different rotations as well as the organization as a whole. When we're in office, they do a tour. We have them do team building things because we want the cohort to be a strong cohort as well. And then they onboard within the department in each rotation, but we also essentially onboard them into each rotation. So it's every 8 weeks where we're having those transitional conversations, having those check-in meetings. And it does get to be a heavier load for my team, but it helps the interns when they feel like, even though they're constantly going into a new setting, we are their constant person to count on and have those conversations with. It's very open on this communication. So I think
Thanks.
that answered all the questions.
Thanks, Jessica. I'm sure I'd be on the list of bad dad jokes type guys for
Not
those
you,
that know
Ryan.
me.
No
My last idea that was created from this is not only an acronym sheet for the interns, but maybe an acronym for the managers who need to know what some of the kids are saying these days. That's just a new idea that spawned out from this. Thank you all to the panelists and sharing a little bit more. We're hoping this is just the beginning of a conversation around these areas. So thank you so much. And did I mention there's a survey that we would love for you to be able to answer to give us more insight into how to help you with your programs moving forward. So Jonna, I will kick it over to you.
Jessica, Bob, Ryan, Kevin, thank you so much. The internship committee, this was an amazing panel. The NTC would not be able to move forward without you. Thank you so much for sharing your time and your talents with this group. We're really excited about what came out of this discussion today. Also, if you loved today, we are doing this again with a program that's being moderated by Jeremy Fisher from Creighton University, calling Jumpstart Your Tech Internship. And this is actually, if you're thinking about putting together a program, you're not quite sure what needs to be done. So please join us tomorrow. If you are new to the NTC and you like what you see, think about becoming a partner of ours, please go to our website. And then this right here, follow us on social media, share, like, tweet, everywhere. We put out a lot of great content on social media, and we need more people to see it. Check out our website if you want more information about events, if certain types of news, and check out and see who's kind of joined this party of ours. at the Nebraska Tech Collaborative. So again, I want to say thank you to everybody. As Ryan said, the survey will be coming hopefully immediately following this webinar. And then in the next couple of days, you'll get a follow-up email, which actually outlines all the presenters' ideas in a nice resource document. And so keep an eye out for that. Again, I'm Jonna Van Doon. Thank you so much, the Nebraska Tech Collaborative. We are an Aksarben workforce initiative. So glad you all could join us.